Welcome to episode 1 of The Positive Bias. I'm Ryan James, and we are here in my studio in downtown Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, to kick off the very first episode of The Positive Bias. It's kind of a surreal and sentimental moment for me, as this has been a long time in the making, not just the past year, decade, but really my entire life. This is the culmination of all of those things. All of my adventures and misadventures, conversations I've had, successes, failures, has all led me to this place, this exact moment, to be honest. And it means a lot to me to have gotten to this point, to be here right now, and to be starting this. There's many things in my life that would have caused this to not happen, and to not acknowledge and be grateful and express gratitude to the people, the places, the things, and just the fortune of being alive still. I treat it with great reverence that I have the ability to do this, and I'm in a place and time, able-bodied, able-minded, to create this space and begin this new chapter in my life. So a brief history about the positive bias, what I want it to be, the origins of it, and the definitions of it. The name came to me. It's not something I coined, but it's terminology from psychology and also from electrical engineering. It first came about when I was researching how digital cameras function. I've been a photographer for about 15 years, and until a couple years ago, I realized that I had no solid understanding of how digital photography actually worked. I mean, on a scientific and electronic level, and I wanted to learn more. And as I unpacked that Pandora's box, because it's absolute magic how cameras work, how these two cameras are working right now. It's a miracle. Terminology came about that just really resonated with me, and that is positive bias. And I'd like to read the electrical definition of that. Positive diodes in electronics is a diode clipping circuit. The diode is forward biased, anode more positive than cathode, during the positive half cycle of the sinusoidal input waveform. Thus, the diode limits the positive half of the input waveform and is known as a positive clipper circuit. I remember reading the term positive bias and thinking, that'd be a great band name or album name or something. I knew it had a certain ring to it that just stuck with me. Didn't think to make it a podcast, even though I was an avid podcast listener at the time. At that period of my life, I never really considered myself to be a podcaster, a podcast host. I was kind of just a consumer of that content. Well, fast forward to now, the imperative is to get as many of these episodes out there, for one, to secure the trademark positive bias before someone else does so. And two, to start hosting, creating, and having meaningful conversations with people in this community and all over the world, really. I see this as being the vehicle forward, not just for myself, but for humanity. I think podcasting is a special platform, it's a lost art form of conversation, open dialogue, uninhibited by, corporate interests. It's the real deal. And really, it's kind of the last bastion of freedom of thought and discourse. And it's so important, especially now in our world, that we have this open dialogue about all the things happening. It's unfortunate because the ability to converse and have discourse and disagree with people respectfully is somewhat of a lost art. Even in my lifetime, I've watched that degrade, and there's numerous reasons you could point to for that. Social media being one of them. We won't get too far deep down that rabbit hole just yet in episode 1. But I think it's important. It's something you have to practice, something you have to be mindful of. It's something you have to engage with and have your beliefs, ideas challenged on a daily basis in front of you. Because if you can't defend them in real time against someone who's grilling you, I don't know, man. They don't seem that strong. It's important that this is like going to the gym, conversational gym. You got to work out. You got to do it because it's how you grow. It's how you learn. And it's how ultimately I believe our world is going to reconcile with each other is conversation, going back to the campfire, having meaningful conversations that are immortalized in digital form that future generations can listen to. It's important. It's actually a very important thing to do and something I take very seriously and treat with great reverence. I know this is important. I don't want to sound self-righteous in that, but having this space and having these conversations is something I take very seriously and intend on using this as a vehicle for positive change in the world. That said, the psychological definition of positive bias is positive bias refers to the human tendency to overestimate the possibility of positive or good things happening in life or in research. In publication, it is the preference for publishing research that has a positive, eventful outcome in favor than an uneventful or negative outcome. I think that's an interesting concept because on its face, that's good. I mean, wouldn't you want a positive outcome? But in terms of research, I could see how it could be a negative thing where you're biased towards a positive outcome even when you shouldn't be. So I want to kind of expand upon that. Personally, in my life, for the majority of my life, especially my adult life, I have not been the most positive person. Matter of fact, I would say my disposition until somewhat recently has been that of a cynic and a really negative-minded person. I had pockets of positivity, but they were generally outshined by an underlying negative foundation, more or less. And I don't know why that is. It could be genetic. It could be any number of things. I don't really know. But I do know this, that it took a lot of unfortunate circumstances. It took me getting sober from drugs and alcohol. It took a lot of intention to make a conscious shift in life to say, why not bias towards the positive things? I've tried the negative side, and I know that doesn't work. I can say that matter-of-factly, that if you live in a negative way and look at the negative outcomes, and you're basically self-fulfilling that prophecy that there will always be a negative outcome for you. You are manifesting that. That word is kind of loaded, but I can say from my own personal experience, when I was more cynical, that was the outcome I ultimately ended up at. And when I made a conscious shift to be more positive, to reject the negative, and to just focus on the positive bias, things opened up immensely. And the studio is actually one of the direct results of that conscious shift. This is like take 10, by the way. I flubbed all the original ones. These lights are so hot. It was like I couldn't get comfortable. I couldn't get out of my own way. But I'm running with this last one here because I just wanted to nail the beginning because it means a lot to me. And I really think that where we're at in society, in the world, open dialogue is an absolute must in our world. You have to have it. It is a non-negotiable. And it's how we're going to get through this dark time as a society, as a species, really. Podcasting to me is the vehicle that will advance us. And I don't say that I believe that wholeheartedly. And I'm proud to have built this space and be starting this mission to have positive, collaborative conversations with people, to agree, to disagree, to learn. It's important, and it's something I'm very grateful to do. And I'm committed to this now. This is episode 1. This is a mile marker. This is the beginning of it. And I can't wait to, I know this is going to unfold in its own way. I mean, I have a general idea of how this is going to play out, but all of my favorite intellectuals currently, I listen to their podcasts or appearance on podcasts. You know, it's comedians, it's scientists, it's artists, musicians. Everyone really has such an interesting story to tell. And I'm really looking forward to hosting awesome conversations here in Lake Geneva from the local people that make up this awesome city, town, but also nationally, internationally. I see this being a global thing. I want to sit down and talk to my idols, because I've heard them talk so much. It's an interesting thing when you listen to a podcast and you're 1,000 episodes in, you know, like I am with a couple of my favorite ones. You know them so well, but they've never met you. It's kind of this interesting thing where you've heard them talk for years, and you know, like nuances and subtleties about how they work. And I just find that somewhat fascinating, is that you can get to know people from across the globe just with an internet connection. Before I get too far off into the weeds, because I can talk forever, although I must say, talking to yourself with no real direction, whole new avenue. I mean, carrying a conversation with yourself that's like even remotely interesting to a potential audience. Shout out to Bill Burr, because I don't know how you've had the Monday Morning Podcast just be a monologue for this long. It's like a real art form. One that I'm not good at just yet. But anyway, episode 1 of The Positive Bias. It's short and sweet. I just wanted to kick this off, also because I need to secure that trademark. So this is a mark in the right direction for that. But plenty more to come. I really want to refine this space to be a space of learning, understanding, mutual respect, and love. That's all.